What if the conversations we've been taught to avoid about sex, desire, and our bodies are actually the ones that set us free? Welcome to Sex Ritual Radio. I'm your host, Rose Heartsong. This is the show where sexuality, spirituality, and vital health meet, and where we explore the conversations most people consider oh so taboo. Each week, I sit down with fascinating voices exploring intimacy, relationships, healing, and human potential. Let's dive in. Hello, hello. This is Sex Ritual Radio with Rose Heartsong. And I like to talk about holistic health, vibrant health. I've been saying vibrant health a lot more because it feels like really nourishing. Sexuality, spirituality, and we talk a lot about the taboo. And I have a really beautiful guest on tonight that I just met. I think this is our second time ever being into each other's presence, and we barely talked in between because life has been so busy. And the second I met you, her name's Sarah Lane. The second we met, there's a resonance that I felt in my bones. And we had this amazing opportunity to talk in a very structured way. We're at this women over dinner, basically like a ritualistic dinner experience for women. And it was just like such a pleasure. And I was like, oh, I want her on my show. So I'm so grateful to have you here, Sarah. She is the founder of Rage Retreats, which we will be talking a lot about rage, and the creatrix of Breath Twerk, which I'm excited to know more about because I don't know much more, but it's basically twerking, and we'll learn about that in a moment. And she leads empaths into empowerment and sovereignty through breathwork, movement, dance, and rage rituals. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
So I know I have a lot more information about you, but I would love to hear it from your own voice. So share with the listeners, who are you? And also, I'd love to know what made you feel called to come on the show. So share us a little bit about yourself.
I am a multi-passionate creatrix. I love following the creative pulse of life and of God that flows through my body and bring forth that which is within me, which includes the rage retreats, the breath twerk, DJing and music, and so much more.
Do you sing?
I sing to myself in the bathtub.
Fantastic. Love that.
I sing with friends, but not publicly yet.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Amazing. Awesome. So what is second question is, what made you feel called to come be on the show? I haven't asked you that.
I also felt a resonance with you that night at Women Over Dinner. And when you asked me to be on the show, I immediately said yes, because I could tell that we were speaking the same language, the language of the taboo and the often banished parts of the feminine. And some of the things that you were sharing, which we'll keep confidential because it was at the Women Over Dinner, but I just remember resonating with some of the things that you were sharing and feeling a connection and wanted to explore that more. And also felt really excited about getting the word out about rage retreats.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women need a rage retreat.
So what is a rage retreat?
The rage retreat is an experience for women to alchemize her rage, her anger, into pleasure and power and purpose. This is a space to transmute that dense energy of anger and rage and grief into more power. And what I mean by power is the power to make a different choice and the power to use your life force energy and the resources that are already available to you in order to make lasting change and make an aligned change or an aligned decision in your life that comes from a place of wholeness rather than reactivity. Because our anger is here to show us what we deeply care about, what we value, what we would like to see differently in the world.
Yeah. It's so interesting as you were sharing that. I kind of had this visualization of this like kind of brittle, small, crinkly old woman that lived her life fully not expressed in her rage, but just like in the bitterness. And like I almost felt like a taste in my mouth, which was so interesting of that bitterness. Like then I saw what you're talking about as this expression of freedom, like being free of the shackles of that rage. And it can be a shackle and resentment
Absolutely.
and anger and bitterness. And the work that I do with couples, a lot of times the woman is so bitter and they're in the bitter and the rage.
Literally wear it on our faces.
I know. In her jaws. Well, it's
Yeah.
like, relax your jaw. Relax your tongue. Yeah, totally. And we hold it our hips. And I always tell people to like literally relax their butthole. Just relax your butthole.
Yes.
Right now.
I say the same thing.
Really?
In Breath Twerk. Hey.
In all my meditations, I'm like,
Yes.
you need to relax your butthole right now.
If we all just had more relaxed buttholes, I think the world would be a better place.
Just breathe into your butthole. So good.
How many people are driving right now listening to this, just relaxing their butthole?
It's necessary. It's important. Okay, so Rage Retreat sounds magical and amazing, but it's funny because I've shared that I'm doing an episode on feminine rage with a couple guys today before I did today. And like they instantly automatically went to like PMS energy, right? Noontime blood. They didn't call it that, but like, some guys call it like Shark Week, which is crazy if you think about it. But I've heard that one before. And so it was so interesting because the men that I introduced that to were more conscious men, right? Because like the people in my close community are men that are doing the work, right? And it was so fascinating just witnessing that reaction from just saying, I was realizing that was like going into the thread of, oh, they're not being the good girl, right? And how do we have a healthy relationship? If we don't go to your rage retreat, like how do we have a healthy relationship with our rage?
The first step is having awareness around it and noticing, being present enough with yourself to notice when there's a trigger, when the anger is coming up. And sometimes it feels like heat. Sometimes it feels like heart beating really fast. Sometimes it feels like clenched fists. Sometimes it feels tension in your shoulders, in your jaw. And when we're present enough to actually slow down and realize, I'm experiencing anger right now, that's what this is. Because women have been programmed and conditioned out of experiencing their anger. As young girls, we're typically educated and conditioned into the good girl archetype, like you mentioned, the sit there and look pretty archetype, instead of someone telling us, hey, it sounds like you're angry right now. What do you need? Maybe let's just take a few breaths together. Let's go stomp our feet in the earth. Maybe we need to scream and yell and punch a pillow and let it out and let it rip. And so many of us didn't have permission. In fact, we were punished for that level of expression. It's called a temper tantrum. So when we learn to have adult temper tantrums, then we actually give ourselves the permission that we never had as children to go there. And so the first step is awareness, but the second step is permission. Actually allowing ourselves to feel angry, placing a hand on the heart, slowing down, and just acknowledging to yourself or out loud, I'm feeling angry. To say to your partner, I'm feeling angry. I need 10 minutes to myself to go punch my pillow and put on some loud music and dance it out. Or I need to go lay down and take some deep breaths. For every nervous system, it's different what level of care is needed. But to be able to give ourselves that permission is ultimately where we start.
Giving yourself permission. So I want to talk about something. I had a conversation with a men's coach of mine, and he does men's rage work. And we were talking, actually, I think we had this conversation on air, actually, and it was the difference between rage and aggression, and how aggression is when you take your rage and you throw it on somebody and make it their problem, versus rage is just expression of anger and like allowing anger to move through your body. And I think that's important because I think it's interesting. Women's rage has been suppressed, right? We're shifting that consciously globally right now in a really powerful way, being that yesterday was the No Kings rally. I don't want to get into politics, but I'm not a fan of the president. I'm just going to be honest. I haven't ever said that on the air. And also, I think he's an amazing, profound magnetism mirror of the Women's March happened when he first became our president. And this huge movement shifted from that. And the world changed and women got angry for the first time. And then the other interesting thing, I didn't know I was going to get this political, I'm going there, is the thing I've been noticing is like as the Epstein files have been coming out, there's almost this, I feel it in myself and I see it in the collective of this numb disassociation of the trauma that's happening right now. And I'm seeing the freedom of expression of what happened to women. Like I was at dinner the other day and this woman just started expressing how when she was 12 years old, she got molested, like in the middle of conversation with people around. And I was like, I think she's saying that clearly, like communicating it out loud because there's like almost this permission slip for women to speak their truth in a way that like before you would never talk about that molestation when you're 12 years old, ever. That was something you'd hold in and then become that like bitter, rageful anger. And she just was expressing it. And I was like, wow, thank you for sharing. That is powerful words. And it's big right now. Like it's bigger than I even have a concept of. And I know how big it is. And rage is a fuel and it's a tool. And I know you teach this. Big rabbit hole that I just opened. And I'm speaking my truth. And I think everything's happening the way it's happening because it needs to be happening. And something I've been noticing lately is what's happening is horrific, but it's not new. It's just new that we're bringing it to the surface to look at it and talk about it and have the biggest rally of all time in our history of this country yesterday. Like that rage. And I saw a lot of like, on Instagram, I saw a lot of the picket signs that women were holding. And it's like, women are rageful. There's a lot of rage coming through the women right now. And so the work that you're doing is so important. And it is important that we like use it as a tool and as a fuel, as like this fiery arrow to go towards what it is that we want to make a difference in the world. So share whatever's coming for you.
Yes. Rage is fuel. It's an arrow. And just as a fire that goes untamed and chaotic and uncontained can burn down a whole city, it can also be contained in a bonfire and warm your hands and roast s'mores. Could also be a small candle flame. And so when we relate to the fire within ourselves, that rage, and understand how to work with it, and understand, okay, is my fire now burning down cities? Or is my fire burning me from the inside out? Is my fire burning my partner right now? Who am I burning with this fire? And how can I bring a little bit more water, AKA our emotions, into the experience? So balancing the fire and the water is important, but also I want to speak to the protesting and advocating. So much power in that because it unites people. It brings people together to use their voices and to advocate for what they care about, to make change. And that's why I believe God created anger, was to show us what is unethical or ethical, right versus wrong, what boundaries we need to set. So if you think about a time where maybe you were angry, what was that anger teaching you? Was it showing you where you needed to say no? Was it showing you where you needed to set a boundary? Was it showing you, oh, wow, I actually deeply care about this thing? For example, if you're setting boundaries for yourself, then you realize, oh, I actually deeply care about my house and myself. That is us using our voice and our collective consciousness to create change. And some people go home and they feel so exhausted after that, and they feel helpless and powerless. I hope what I did today made some kind of difference, but I'm not sure.
Mm.
We all are playing a role in this grand game, in this grand puzzle of life. And some people's role is to be boots on the ground with the megaphone. And some people's role is to be in meditative prayer. Some people's role is to make art out of the unthinkable. Some people's role is to create community. And we get clear on that role by actually listening to what the anger has to say.
It's a really powerful fuel. And I think women have a tendency to we shame our rage.
Yes.
We make it wrong. We don't want to be messy and chaotic and wild. And going back to what I said and you said is we've been programmed to be the good girl and to be like well behaved. And I grew up not that way, like at all. Like I grew up in a van with a hippie mama who lived life on her terms and her way. And I like hauled water and chopped wood and got my hands in the dirt. And I'm still finding parts of myself from our societal programming that go, you're not being good enough. And I talk about taboo stuff on the radio, and I like talk about sex parties and orgies and crazy stuff. And I'm like taboo and is like not good girl as it gets. And there's still pieces of crevices of moments of you're not good enough. You should be doing it this way. Or why did you do it that way? And like maybe if you did it better and you were in the nice zone, people would like you better, or you would make more of an impact. Or like I'm afraid a lot of the times on social media to be like my bold, wild, erotic, messy, opinionated self. And like even just, about politics and stuff, like I get scared. And it's interesting to know that even though I came from such a wild space, but then right before we got on the air, we were talking about like the energy of money and how like you and I are in the second generation of women who've even had access to money. And so then that like compassion can come back in of we're doing really good, gosh dang, so incredibly well and have so much freedom. And so there's like that dichotomy of finding the good girl and like working with her and giving her what she needs. And then also allowing the wildness inside of us, that freedom and out of that cage and to be what we want her to be. Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately. Actually, I've been in the somatic kink realm and like what is binding me and that I'm being submissive to, like being contained by that I don't want to be contained by. And I've been really in the curiosity of that. And then also, I think one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you deal with this with clients too, is a lot of the times we don't know what we don't know, and then we don't know what we want. And that's the hardest part of the humans. We know what we don't want, but we don't know what we want.
The good girl wants safety. She wants security. And if she loses connection or the approval of the people around her, then now she's losing her community and sense of belonging, which is such a basic human need. That survival instinct to feel connected and accepted by the community. And when a woman expresses her rage, there is a risk. There is a risk of losing that approval and not looking like the perfect good girl. So when she takes that risk and there's still connection or there's still love, it's so healing to those parts that feel so afraid. And on the other hand, the wild woman, she wants her freedom and she doesn't care about the safety and the security and all the things. She just wants to be free and play and have fun. And these parts of our psyches are so valuable and they each have their own wisdom and they each deserve our attention and love. And we need to stop banishing those parts of ourselves to some basement and keeping her locked up.
So I'm just curious, how did you get into teaching rage retreats? Like, I'm sure you have quite a rage story yourself to get here. Like, that's a big thing to be doing.
In high school, I got in a lot of fights.
Really? Like actual fist
Fights.
Wow. I am impressed. That's not very common for women.
I've come a long way. I grew up with a single mom, 2 older brothers. And so I didn't have an example of graceful femininity in a way, if you will. And I was very angry and heartbroken that my father wasn't around. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old, and I never saw my father again. Never heard from him, never saw him. And so instead of expressing that anger and that grief in a healthy way, I bottled it up. I suppressed it. Of course, all of this is unconscious to a 6, 7-year-old. And that anger would come out in the form of aggression. So I'm glad that you brought that up earlier. There is a difference between anger and aggression, which I'm happy to share more about. So that was my distortion of anger very early on. Learned eventually how to feel it, how to control it, how to work with it. And then later on, as it continued bubbling up, this anger, this rage inside of me felt like it was a dragon just laying dormant. And she would come out during my luteal phase, that PMS phase. I still call it the dragon phase.
Much better than PMS.
I'm in my dragon phase.
Yes.
Before I get to my womb cave.
Yeah.
And so during the dragon phase and connecting with that energy of the dragon, I was so afraid of it. I was so scared that I would burn myself, burn someone else like I had in high school, getting into fights. I had so much shame around that because I knew it was quote unquote wrong. And that was my internal guidance system coming online saying, hey, there's a healthier way to do this. And when I started deeply listening, meditating, doing breath work, I started on a spiritual path and a healing journey. I would do these breathwork sessions and the facilitator would teach us, okay, it's time to scream. The scream was so much permission to just let it go and let it out. And then I eventually became certified in breathwork and Reiki, yoga, somatic coaching, all of these different trainings and certifications to understand what's happening in the body, in the chakra system, and understand where rage lives. And what I found is it really lives in these lower chakras, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. So while a lot of the spiritual practices I was doing at the time, like meditation, they were more connected on the upper chakras, which I benefited from a lot. And I realized I'm missing the entire lower half of my body. What's going on down there? So I would be in these breathwork sessions laying down and breathing so deeply into my body, and it would naturally want to move and undulate and express. And eventually I wanted to start dancing and moving with the energy. Little did I know, it was a Kundalini life force that was awakening. And I needed to dance through that and allow the spiral movement, allow the gyration, allow the hip thrusts, allow the pelvic tilts, allow the twerking, so that I could move that stuck energy that was laying dormant at the base of my spine and in my lower chakras, so that I could actually feel that sense of freedom and embodiment and actually feel myself. And there was years of grief and shame and rage all wrapped up in that.
That's amazing. I love that. I was just thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking about whenever I do ayahuasca, I have to do figure eights with my hips the whole time. Like my body makes me do that like the whole night. And then the next day I feel like so alive in my body. Like I feel so free and so present. And I'm like, oh, why do I do that like right now?
Every day.
Every day. I know, it's interesting. Yeah, that's been something today. Like I had this realization that though I teach erotic practices, I haven't been in my erotic practices lately. I was like, oh, I got to do that. I got to remember what teach. Like I'm doing it really good with my boundaries and my intuition and following myself and everything. But yeah, it's interesting. So I want to tap into something that you were saying earlier. It just hit me because you and I are both in the spiritual community. And I've noticed in the spiritual community that rage isn't necessarily welcome sometimes. It's like spiritually bypassed a lot. Like anger. And if you're not happy with somebody, you just need to alchemize and find the root cause and have the clearing conversations and like the spiritual fluffiness sometimes. And that honestly really pisses me off. I'm not gonna lie. No, being a human is hard and there's moments that are real and we can be real about it, and that's okay. And I've also noticed that happens with women. And then also I've had that happen in partnership with men in the spiritual community too. They're like really afraid of rage. Like it's so interesting. I felt called to have this conversation with you because I've never really gone this deep into it. And so I'm having all this realization just from having the conversation. But it's so uncomfortable for people.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. There's two things I'm seeing playing out. One is that if someone grew up or was exposed to anger as aggression, meaning anger is not safe to be around because it turns into aggression or even violence or abuse very quickly. And so anger becomes unsafe. So that's why a lot of men shut it down. Usually an angry parent, and it's the same for women, but because you asked about men, if there's an angry parent that specifically was abusive or violent whenever they got angry, we equate that with now anger is not safe. But anger can be safe. Just like the fire analogy, a fire can be very safe when it's contained and there's just the right amount of oxygen. And if you're in a safe space like a rage retreat, where you can actually let it rip on your pillow. You can scream, you can yell, you can punch it out. You can throw old plates against a wall. You can make art with it. You can splatter paint. We've done a community mural painting and turning anger into art. So there's these ways that we can work with the frequency of energy because ultimately everything is energy. Emotions are energy in motion. So if anger is in motion, it wants to go somewhere. It's a very activating energy. It's actually of a higher vibration than, say, depression or apathy. So anger can spur you into action, but it's up to you to decide what is that action I'm going to take with this anger.
I'm going to destroy with it, or I'm going to stand for what I believe in with it, I think is the biggest for me.
Yes, it can be creation and destructive.
Yeah, because it's like fuel. There's a lot of fuel happening right now. Yesterday was a big deal. That's a lot of fuel.
There's going to be a lot of change happening because of that.
Yeah.
Because of the collective consciousness that creates shifts. And then the second piece I want to go back to, just to close that loop, when you were speaking to rage not being allowed in spiritual communities, I feel that so deeply. I actually frequent a Buddhist temple about once or twice a week. And I giggle to myself in the meditation hall because I'm like, what would happen if I just screamed right now? They would totally kick me out.
That's so interesting. It's such a different energy. That's the white energy. You showed up on this pure white. That's like the white.
Oh, yes.
Frequency.
Yes, I can play in both worlds because they're both needed, right? The masculine and the feminine. So we need the grounded meditation and focus on consciousness, and also the feminine expression of punching a pillow, dancing it out, twerking it out, right? In my opinion, we need both to really take good care of ourselves. So in the spiritual communities where rage is not welcome, or perhaps there's gaslighting happening. For example, if something happens in a workshop or at a retreat and it makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or it just pissed you off, it triggered you, a lot of times a facilitator will say something like, and this is gaslighting, right? They'll say something like, oh, you need to heal that part in yourself, or you just weren't integrating the teachings, or they'll make it about you. And that is very much cult-like behavior, right? So we need to use our discernment when we're in these spaces of, is my truth actually accepted here? Is my true opinion actually welcomed? If I have feedback for a facilitator, will they actually be open to receiving it? Or are they just going to tell me I'm wrong and tell me that I'm not spiritually evolved enough? And unfortunately, there's a lot of that cult-like behavior playing out in spiritual communities because of the lack of an integrity in honoring lineage and honoring the deep spiritual training that's required to sit at that seat of leadership. So the more that we can hold each other accountable, check ourselves, checks and balances. This is what we're seeing play out in the government. There's no check and balance anymore. There's no one that's able or in a position of power to check our president. We're trying, we're getting there. So we see what happens when that power is taken advantage of. And so that happens on a macro level and it happens on a micro level, which encourages us to come back even deeper to our own sovereignty and discernment and decision-making, to really feel into, is this someone that I want to follow? Is this someone that I want to learn from? Or is this a cult?
Well, it's interesting you're saying that because, like, in my coaching, I start with 12 sessions. And right after session 6, there's this huge breakdown that happens, like big stuff. And so I'm like, I'm always just ready for it, right? I'm like, let's go. Come on. It keeps me in my toes. Let's go. And one of the things that happens sometimes is they get mad at me. I receive the anger. And I'm always like, okay, let's go. What are you mad about? Get mad at me. Why are you mad? Let's go. What's this about? I don't make it like, oh, this is your own responsibility. I'm like, great. You're mad at me. Why? Let's talk about it. This is awesome. And I had actually a pretty big one recently, and I sat with it beforehand. I was like, what does this guy need? What does he really need? Like, he is going on a journey that is not happy with me right now. I knew, don't want to be the spiritual bypassing person, right? Because we're talking about this. I knew I brought up a trigger from a wound and he was having a really hard time looking at it. And so I was like, okay, I am going to take responsibility that I opened that wound. Like, we went there together. And so what does he need? I was like, oh, he needs some salve. He needs some salve on his wound. And so, like, I just showered him with love and compassion. And he's just sent me the sweetest note afterwards. I am so grateful. Like, I felt so cared about and so loved. And that was exactly what I needed. Thank you. And it was so interesting because based on his background, he has a really radical background. He grew up in prison and like really intense stuff. So I had this story in my head that like he needed tough love. And I have a dominatrix training, so I can show up with that energy. But I was like, no, he needs that sweetness. And it really impacted him. And so I think that's important too, as facilitators. It's really our responsibility to show up with what's the most needed medicine in the moment. Because even though his wound is not my problem, it's my problem that we went there. And that's my responsibility as a facilitator. And so I think it is important for facilitators, if you're listening right now and you facilitate, it's like really important to own the impact of your work and what you're bringing forward. And I'm sure you have to do that with rage because that's a big energy to hold. I hold it too, but just differently.
Totally. Yeah, it sounds like you were able to really attune to your client's needs in that moment. And that skill of attunement is honed over time. And it speaks to your ability to be present with him and also yourself. Present enough to not take it personally and to understand both sides and to not necessarily fight back or get defensive, but just actually open your heart even more to resource him in a way that perhaps he had never been resourced.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really beautiful. I think that's another one that happens too, is like when a lot of times men get mad at me. They get really angry. And the way that I respond to them, because I'm not in the relationship, when I'm in a relationship, it's different. Like it's a different energy, not perfect, doing way better these days, super proud of myself. And like me responding with, okay, let's talk about it. Like, I see you're angry right now. There's some rage happening. Do you want to express it in some way? How do you want to feel it? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to scream? What do you want to do? Let's go there. And to see their wives to see that has been really transformational for them, of not shrinking. I think it's really important in relationship to have, I'm in the kink world, and the boundaries and the consent and the communication, like having that boundary, consent, communication, desire conversation around rage. Hey, if you're feeling rage, what do you need from me? This is what I'm not available for. This is what I'm available for. How can I support you? What is the best tool in the toolbox of things that can help you with that? And then I've been in relationships in the past with very aggressive men. I've been physically, mentally, and spiritually, and everything. I've been abused. One of the things he would do is he would get aggressive and like point down and like tower over me and point down. And so one of my things was like, if you're angry, you can't come within 6 feet of me. And we had to go through, him and I, we went through a journey together, but it was like I had to sit with his anger and create boundaries, but not suppress it. And it was really potent energy, because men can be scary. If we're going to be real, like men are just bigger than women. And so they are scary, but like I chose to take on that. I brought in a man that had rage issues and that he was throwing them at me. And I started to create those boundaries. And then eventually, obviously, like the boundary was so much that he left the relationship. And I don't allow that into my space in the field anymore. But it was really interesting like that. Okay, like you're allowed to be angry 6 feet away from me. Like I'll cheer you on. I'll be kind. I'll put music on. I'll do whatever you need me to do. But 6 feet away from me, that's my boundary. And we worked through that and we got there, but it was intense. But yeah, I think that's really important. It's like, where is that safety where it goes from rage to aggression?
Yeah, that boundary sounds really healthy and strong. I'm grateful that you were able to do that. And for anyone who's listening who might be experiencing physical abuse right now, know that sometimes the only boundary is to physically leave and create a physical separation between the person to get yourself to safety.
I did have to call the cops on him once because I was afraid he was going to physically hit me, but that was part of the boundary setting of no. And he never did that again after that. That was a clear one. Obviously, I probably should have left. I know I should have left. Whole other story. But yeah, no, it's really important to leave and not try to stay in that container. But it was also a very visceral, physical alchemy of the difference between aggression and rage. So I'm trying to navigate and communicate that. Where it's like, if you ever feel physically unsafe or your nervous system is feeling unsafe or you're feeling anxious all the time and just not safe in your body because your partner or a family member or a friend is throwing their anger at you, that's when it's not okay. And you need to get out of that in any way you can. But I think that's like really important. But then what I've found in my rage experience is like we were talking about, like naming it. I am just angry right now. Let me be angry. Like I need to express this. If you can't hold the space for it, get out. I'm going to do this and I'm going to hold it. So
don't try to fix me. Just let me be angry for a minute.
Yeah.
Let me just have this moment that most women have never been afforded to just be angry, because girls are allowed to be sad, but we're not allowed to be angry. That's the program. And boys are allowed to be angry, but they're not allowed to be sad. They often go hand in hand. Usually when you're doing rage work, a ton of grief will come up. Or if you're doing grief work, maybe there's anger there too. And then all of it is wrapped up in a big old ball of shame. And shame is what keeps it down beneath the surface, hidden there for no one else to see. So when we give voice to it in a safe space and we speak it out loud to safe people, that is what unravels the ball of shame so that the underlying grief and rage can actually come out fully. Because if we don't get on the shame part first, people stay hiding from themselves.
So for somebody listening, and if they're dealing with the rage and they like, I'm feeling rage right now, what are like some practical, plausible, actionable steps that they can do besides coming to a rage retreat, of course, to work with it?
So it depends on if they're what I call anger in or anger out.
Okay.
If you're anger in, that means that you tend to suppress. You tend to silence yourself. You don't show anyone that you're angry, and instead it comes out later as passive aggressiveness or the good girl, right? So that's anger in. If you're anger out, that means it's pretty easy for you to express your anger, where you either raise your voice, you might even get aggressive, you might throw something. It's natural for you to just go straight into the expression. So first, have the awareness, am I anger in or anger out? If you're anger in, grab your pillow, scream into it, put on some rage music, dance it out, shake your body, punch the pillow, really let it rip. These are for the people that tend to suppress their anger, and the medicine for you is to let the anger out, even if just for 5 minutes. And then you come back, you catch your breath, and now you feel more clear. You can take some deep breaths, you can have a conversation, you can make a line change with that information. The anger out people, you already want to go punch a pillow. Maybe you're already doing that, and that's easy for you. So the medicine for anger out is to come back to the breath and breathe into your belly. You can go outside, put your feet in the earth. You can lay down, finding a way to nurture the fire, right? So literally getting in water can be helpful. Taking a shower, taking a bath, jumping in the ocean, and using your breath to create a little bit more space in your body and naming the sensation, naming what arises. Okay, I'm feeling this heat. I'm feeling my fists. I'm feeling this anger rising. What is this anger here to tell me? What do I need to know? What boundary do I need to set? How can I use my voice to advocate for myself and for those that I care about? So for anger in, you can do that as well. You can do the breathing exercises, but what is really begging to come forth is that inner dragon. The good girl wants to be unleashed into that inner dragon, to feel the full feminine force of nature and the full feminine power. That is also inclusive of our rage, because she's so powerful and we fear our power. It's scary to be in our own power.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's a constant journey for me.
Yeah.
Like I feel the impact of my energy and how it shifts spaces. And I know I've been told my whole life since I was a child. And I also, since I was 2, I've been told like I'm so powerful and I have so much power. But then I also was raised with a bipolar mother who was very jealous of it and very insecure about my power because she didn't have a lot of it. And so she was always telling me I wasn't enough. And so I'm constantly in that dance of the not enough girl, got to try harder, got to work harder, got to produce more, got to do this to make her mommy happy. And then there's the other piece of me that like knows that I can create whatever I want to create and do whatever I want to do. And like I'm constantly getting feedback about it all the time from the universe. And so it's this inner journey of the Libra moon. It's like this kind of checks and balances constantly that I'm like navigating through. But then going back to, it's also interesting as you're talking about the inner fire and the outer fire, anger in, anger out. It's interesting because of my mom, I have both. And because I'm an Aries, I'm very passionate and fiery. And I'm like the Aries are like the first fire sign. So they're like big and bold and then they burn out really fast and they don't hold on to things. So I don't have a tendency to hold things. And my mom was super bipolar and very emotional. And so because she was constantly up and down all the time, I checked myself and I was like, I don't want to be like her. So I don't want to be too emotional. So there's like those like two different dichotomies, like intertwined, battling with themselves on a consistent basis. So it's, yeah, like with a lot of my clients, I actually have them do like a 90-second rage ritual where they just put on a crazy song and punch. And then at a retreat I did, we did that as well. And it's really powerful. So I think like for anyone it works, and in my opinion, because I'm like, oh, I need to do that. But unfortunately, with my current physical body, it's challenging. So maybe I should go do one in the oceans because like it's a lot safer to like rage out in the water.
Flash the water around, throw some rocks.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. But yeah, unfortunately, it's like heartbreaking because it goes so incredibly fast, but we only have about 4 minutes left. I know, it's always so quickly.
Whoa. We didn't even get to twerking.
You got a few minutes to talk about twerking because it's important. And then we want to know where to find you to know more about twerking and more about rage. And then we're going to have to close up. Really sad because the conversation is so good.
So the rage retreats have twerking in them.
Perfect.
Because when we're going through the rage ritual, we clear out all the space in our minds and our bodies that we're able to actually receive more pleasure. And if rage, especially toward ex-lovers, past partners, past abusers, or maybe even your current partner, that anger and rage that's stored in the womb space, especially in the yoni walls, once that is cleared, there is a wellspring of pleasure available now.
Yes.
And so the women get a taste of that at the rage retreat. Right after the rage ritual, we come back into pleasure through twerking and through dance and sensual embodiment. So the entire experience is designed to bring you back home to your body in a way that feels pleasurable and safe and powerful, so that you now have a new expanded capacity to hold more of yourself, hold more of your clients, and to hold more of that power and not be afraid of it anymore.
I'm imagining that when you say like it creates that pleasure, it's being able to hold the power of an orgasm, because a lot of times it's really scary to hold the pleasure of the orgasm in the body. A lot of times we shut down from it. And so letting it express through our bodies.
Yes, exactly. Expressing it without collapsing. And myself and the other co-facilitator were both trauma-informed and nervous system educated. So everything is through that lens. There's a lot of safety and titration that happens so that no one is feeling forced into anything that feels like too much too fast. So if anyone is interested in coming to that experience,
please, yes. Where can they find you?
www.rageretreats.com.
So good.
And also, if you want to learn more about Breath Twerk, which is my modality combining breathwork and twerking, that website is breath-twerk.com. And you can follow me on Instagram. I am .saralane, also at Rage Retreats.
It's been such an incredible pleasure to have you on. I could be talking about this for hours and hours. And for those who are listening, the show would not be without you. And we're so grateful to have you here. This is Sex Ritual Radio with Rose Heartsong. And we're here every single Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on KXFM. This is Laguna's Community Radio. And I hope you all have the most absolutely beautiful night and beautiful week. Thank you, Sarah Lane.
Thank you, Rose.